Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Oscar Buzz. Trevor here, as always, with Thomas. Today we are talking about Thor, Love, and Thunder, the latest film from Taika Waititi, latest film in the MCU, and it's not very good.
No, it's not. More like Thor don't love and Thunder. Cheap little pun there for the viewer.
Gonna drop him out. Yeah, no. So this wasn't great. It's
No.
Taika. It felt like Taika indulging in all of his worst tendencies because I like Taika. I like Taika quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like I like Jojo Rabbit a lot. I love What We Do in the Shadows. I think Thor Ragnarok is one of the best MCU films. I've just been so frustrated and tired with the MCU though of late. It's just hasn't been working, and this is again just everything that hasn't been working. Just so undercooked. Everything felt so unearned. It felt like I don't know how a movie can fit this much into the movie while still accomplishing so little.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I will agree with you there that I think this does have the unfortunate position of being a movie that I'm pinning all of my current problems with the MCU on. In a similar way that Civil War is my favorite one, because I'm pinning all of the good things, the thing I love about the MCU, the interconnectivity, the character interactions, the action. I'm pinning that all onto Civil War, really. This is sort of the reverse. So all my problems with it currently, the lack of direction, the sort of cheap looking visual effects at this point, it just does not look
Oh my
good
god, it
anymore.
looked disgusting.
Yeah,
this movie
exactly.
Looked awful.
Just give them practical helmets for crying out loud.
I know, Jesus Christ.
Did they not learn from Green Lantern? Physical suits. Physical suits.
I said in my Letterboxd review, so according to the Academy, a film has to be at least 75%, it has to be composed of at least 75% animation to count for animated feature. I quite literally believe that this movie would count for best animated feature. I think over 75% of this movie, just looking at the frame, is animated. It's just everything, everything in the Omnipotent City just looked disgusting. It's just
it didn't look.
You could tell that they were just walking around on
where Thor Ragnarok looked vibrant and visually interesting. This just doesn't.
Yeah, it was just so obvious that they were walking around on soundstage.
Yeah,
100%. It looked so bad, so bad, and. I do think, but I don't know. I am there are some things that work visually. For instance, I think and we're gonna get into full spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, I guess go see it or don't because it's bad. But I think the Shadow Realm, where everything is black and white, and then the use of the reds and blues and golds. To pierce through that, I think it looks fun.
No, but then the problem is
that actually looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's counteracted with the majority of the film not looking good. So it's
not looking good.
Removes the effect of that.
But honestly, I think that's one of the best looking sequences in a Marvel movie. Is the with the first fight sequence when they're on that little moon looking thing, and they're Thor, Jane, and Valkyrie are fighting the Gore the God Butcher, and I don't know, just how the color and the swirling color when they were flying around the planet and stuff, and how that interacted with the black and white, and I think the tension worked really well. And honestly, the only sequences I enjoyed were the sequences with Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher, because I think that he gives a great performance and is severely underused. And as Thomas said before we started recording, it's in a completely different movie and in a movie I would rather see.
Yeah, which is a problem when he's your main villain.
Right, because I think he was great. Honestly, I think that he was very good.
Yeah, he had a nice motivation and all that kind of stuff. He had all of the trademarks that would make a good MCU villain, but he was just in the wrong movie.
Yep, I agree. And so let's talk. I don't think the humor worked in this. I found this painfully unfunny.
Yeah, I think because Thor Ragnarok felt so fresh in its sort of comedy style, this just now feels, it's weird because it's only 5 years later. It just feels very tired at this point. This form of comedy.
It's the joke a minute MCU style of making movies now. That I think it kind of started with Guardians, and then it kind of was fully adopted with Thor Ragnarok. So now every single MCU movie just has to be joke. And it's, we kind of got the same thing in 2017 with honestly 2017 between Guardians 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Thor Ragnarok. We just got inundated with this, every single Marvel movie has to be a low-key comedy. And it doesn't work. And I'm perfectly fine with taking a goofier tone with these characters. Like I think superhero movies shouldn't take themselves seriously. They're goofy. They're about people like in like spandex suits running around and saving the world from like made up like villains. Like they should be goofy. They should be silly. They should be stupid. They should be targeted towards like children. And I think that this was like almost there, except for this movie is also trying to be like very serious. This is trying to do this thing with like Jane and her cancer and like the moral dilemma that she's facing. And like it's almost trying to incorporate some like horror elements with Gore the God Butcher that does not mesh at all with like this like rom-com vibe that they're also trying to do. Like just
it's the same problem with Doctor Strange in Multiverse Madness. It's they're trying to balance too many tones. They need to just stick to one. Like else it doesn't work. Else it falls apart. And you just get tonal whiplash.
Because like the MCU, how it functions now, like the way films are made within the MCU, they do not have the ability. They aren't strong enough films on their own to hold these multiple tones. Like they don't have. They just don't. They aren't good enough movies.
No. To clarify, I'm not saying when I want them to stick to one tone. I don't want them all to stick to the same MCU tone.
Yeah.
But like Doctor Strange should have been a horror film. This should have. It depends which elements work best for you. Personally, I do think the more horror elements with gore were the ones that were my favorite in this film. So I would have personally liked to have seen them gone down that route. But if the rom-com elements were your favorite there, that would have been perfectly fine as well to make this more of a MCU rom-com.
Just commit to one.
Exactly.
Like, and Jane's return felt like very unceremonious. We haven't seen this character in what, 8 years?
Yeah.
Like
she made like the tiniest appearance in Endgame. Yeah.
Yes, but like as far as like actually seeing this character. Like, and then she's just like kind of back, and then we move on. Like everything felt so rushed with her character. Like it was just like she's there, and then she just randomly turned to the exact right page of this book to get the moment of inspiration, and then she like goes and gets Mjolnir, and then she's just like there now.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like this movie is very short and it almost feels like it needed a bit more time to breathe because like every single character arc that they attempt with this feels so incredibly unearned.
Yeah. And like it's also like what is the point in making a female Thor? Like they've been doing this with pretty much every single Avenger where you got Kate Bishop and Hawkeye. And then you've got a couple of others like that. And it's just like make your own female superheroes. Don't just like because giving them the exact same power as someone who already exists in the universe, like that's not interesting. That's not an interesting thing to do because then you've just got two characters who are basically the same, other than the fact they're a different gender.
I mean, and it's from the comics, I guess, but like even within the comics, it doesn't make like I mean, this was the whole talk when they were talking about like a female James Bond, and it's like should we have more female action heroes? Absolutely. But don't just make it a female James Bond. Like, don't make the entire success of the female character lynching off of the male character, because then that's just saying that, a female action hero can't support themselves without a male character also there. Like,
I mean, I wouldn't even mind a female James Bond, but I don't want to see a female James Bond and a male James Bond occupy the same screen, which is exactly what we've got here. We've got a female Thor and a male Thor. It's just like
because
really
just give just give like the female character her own movie. Like she doesn't need the male character there.
No.
To be like, well, we can't like, and honestly, I would have much rather seen Natalie Portman's Jane Foster in her own movie or show. I don't think that she fits in well with this. I think that her character was honestly the most compelling and also the most poorly executed. Because I would love to see I thought that was also an element that could have worked. Jane as a character grappling with she has cancer, she's might die soon, and then balancing that with being a hero and being Thor, and I think I've read the comics run and it works really well, the moral dilemma and the dichotomy of death and preventing death, and there's so much that you can do there, and instead she's just kind of thrown in, and it almost feels just like a token, she's just there to be there.
Especially because those sorts of themes, as you mentioned, with death and preventing death, would have also linked in with the Gore character and the themes he was discussing. So it would have come together as a more
Thor
concise story.
Chris Hemsworth's Thor, I don't even know what needed to be here. I think that he almost detracts from the film, and takes time away from like I think what could have been a more compelling film with Jane.
Yeah.
Like
Especially
honestly, I think best.
yeah, especially into character of Thor, his arc was done. His arc has been done.
Yeah,
Like in the
he's
first
so
film, he's learning to
tired.
discover his place in the world. In the second one, he doesn't really have an arc. That's why I thought that arc would in the great movie.
Yeah,
For Ragnarok,
yeah.
he learns to discover his place in the world, but it is in a slightly more fresh way, in a different way than was seen in the first four. So I gave him credit
But
for
then now
that.
he's like still discovering his
Yeah,
place in the world.
exactly. He's still doing the
Like
exact same thing. Like in Endgame as well, his character wasn't great. Like I wasn't a big fan of the direction they did the character.
yeah,
So like I think the character's done. He should have gone with Captain America
I
and Iron
think
Man. And we should have had all
I
three
agree.
right off into the sunset and leave this franchise because their
I
arcs were
agree.
done.
I think best case like if you do have to keep him around, I think best case scenario is you throw him with the Guardian in like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and just leave him there. And then Thor Love and Thunder is just about Jane Foster.
Yeah, that would have been totally fine. Like I don't hate that the Guardians of the Galaxy on in this movie. I know a lot of people were slightly annoyed at that since they were a big part of the marketing campaign. I don't hate
Yeah,
it. I think they would have just
it's just
taken up even more screen
odd.
time than other people. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was like I would have liked to have seen them a bit more, maybe.
But I think the other problem is that with the direction that this film ended up going, they shouldn't have even been here at all. Like they
No,
just take up like 15 minutes of screen time that didn't need to be there.
yeah,
Like that opening battle sequence with like the temple and everything. Like I didn't find it funny, and it's just like I feel like they're trying to set up this thing of like Thor's like working on his own and he needs to like learn to work as a team, which like again just like the most basic like character arc that they quite literally did in the first Avengers movie. But then they didn't even follow through with that. And
yeah,
I don't really understand the point of the first 15 minutes of this movie. Like
yeah.
it felt so unfocused when there were so many like actually strong elements that you could focus on. And like with the relationship stuff, like you could focus on like Valkyrie's loss as well, which is just touched on like so briefly, and then they just make a joke about it and move on. But then like Gore prying into it, like I think that worked well. I don't know. I think just the tonal whiplash. It doesn't balance the tones very well. And I think that there are so many interesting things that you could dive into with the characters that is just completely lost on the film.
Yeah, especially the whole aspect with Valkyrie having to be a ruler. I thought that was going to be explored because the trailers gave it away that might be a aspect. It's really not. Like it's maybe mentioned a couple of times that she's struggling to rule in this sort of bureaucratic society, or whatever. But it's an interesting thing that's mentioned in passing, but just not touched on at all, which is a shame.
Yeah, it's just so undercooked. Like I think Valkyrie is like such an interesting character. Like again, like we said, like with like her feeling the loss and then now having to serve all of these people. But then and like it's just turned into like a comedic montage.
Yeah,
And then we move on.
Yeah.
And like everything is just so undercooked, and they're so afraid to kill characters, which is so annoying. Like Korg is like, oh, he's dead. Oh wait, but he's actually alive. And then we're like, oh, Valkyrie might be dead. Oh, but she's still here. And then again, we're talking about spoilers. Jane's dead. Wait, no, she's still here. Valhalla and Heimdall's here, and then we're gonna do something with that. Like,
yeah. I mean, I don't mind the ending of Jane going to Valhalla, like as long as that's never touched on again, and that's just like, okay, she's in.
Oh, it's
heaven.
100% being touched on again,
I
though.
really hope it isn't, though. I really hope it isn't, because
It is
Heimdall's death
100%.
as well was good back when he died. I don't need to see him again, but like I don't mind that it was like if they end that story there, and it's just like, okay, we know Jane Foster's in a good place now, dead but in a good place. Like that's fine, I guess. Also, like with the amount of elements that were undercooked, the fact Korg has way too much screen time.
Yeah,
is
Korg
odd,
doesn't need to be there.
he was overbearing in Thor Ragnarok. I found him to be just slightly annoying then. Like he was at his best there, and then all his subsequent appearances, Avengers Endgame, he was annoying, and here he's now annoying. He just and the fact he's narrating parts of the film, like what is that about? Really? Could we not find a better character? Did it have to be
the framing device as well of like him telling the kids the story after they get them back, it's just so odd and doesn't even click. Like it didn't even click with me until this morning. That's like, oh, they were trying, like that's what they were trying to do. It's so weird. Like there are just so many like fragments of a movie just that feel like they're kind of thrown together, and I think that there are like legitimately good elements there, and it just doesn't work. Like I think the idea of this is like almost a standalone film is interesting because like it is trying to keep it largely self-contained, but why did we need another self-contained Thor movie? Why did we need, like, if we're going to tell a self-contained story, tell it about Natalie Portman's Jane Foster.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that Natalie Portman's at her best when she's like struggling with like, or cancer and like, struggling with like death, right? That's where Natalie Portman is thriving. All of the comedic stuff, Natalie Portman did not work well with that material at all.
No,
Like
I
in the
know.
conversation
She's a
about like
dramatic actress.
catchphrases
You
and
can tell
stuff.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, Natalie Portman is a phenomenal dramatic actress. Look at Jackie, look at Black Swan, look at like, there's so many great like examples of her as a phenomenal dramatic actress. She doesn't work well with comedy, and that's fine. Like you don't have to be a comedic actor. But I don't understand why they're like so adamant. Like again, the catchphrase scene and everything. Like it's just it doesn't work. And it's so unfunny, and it just takes away from like all of the gravitas of like this very real thing that this character is dealing with. Again, if we're going to tell a self-contained Thor story, have it be about Jane Foster, who is the actually compelling character.
Yeah, exactly. That is the problem. This film is fixable. Like have this film be about Natalie Portman and Christian Bale's gore. Leave Thor off with Guardians of the Galaxy. They can do stuff later. And maybe if you really want to discuss the Valkyrie situation, ruling that, make it like a short film and release it to YouTube or whatever, something like that. Obviously, they're not going to do that, but it could be fun.
But I even think that Valkyrie could work within this, versus having this be about Jane. I think Valkyrie even works there. Like
I don't know if there is enough space, but yeah, I guess it may still put a list under about it, but yeah, why not? If you throw her in there,
like taking out Thor and Korg, like I think that just Valkyrie and Jane, like because I think that they do have like a kind of fun dynamic in this that again like isn't explored at all. Like when Jane like smashes the sink and Valkyrie comes in to check on it, like that's like there's something there that you can work with. Like I think that those two actors do work. I mean, and I think that they're two great actresses. Like Tessa Thompson has shown, like with like passing and stuff, like she's a great actress.
Yeah.
And having two like great actresses work together in a film where they're both grappling with loss, like Jane, the potential loss of her own life, and Valkyrie with like the loss of like again, I thought that they were going to go into it, like the loss of like her girlfriend like years ago, and then just having to like completely ignore that to like serve her people, and then like coming together and bonding through that. I think that's a way more fascinating film. And you're actually like progressing like character arcs, and instead you just have like Thor and Korg, which just feels so annoying and tired at this point. It's just I don't know. And then at the end it almost just feels like we just wasted 2 hours for setup, because I don't think that this is self-contained. Because like what are we doing with that girl at the end? Like what is this? Like again, it just like it breathes like the entire ending where they have like gore and they're on like the water reflecting thing. It feels so like they moved through that so fast, and everything felt so unearned. Like the drastic change of heart in everybody was like, oh, okay, so I guess the characters have just changed their mind because it was convenient for the story, and then now the girl's just there.
Yeah,
and
like Thor ending up with a child, it could be fun. Like I do want to see that dynamic, but did we need a whole film to set up that? And also, the film doesn't even really set up that, because Thor does not mention one time. I mean, no, that he actually wants a child. There may be one mention. I don't exactly recall.
Korg just says, I think Thor would make a good dad.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, okay, and he has a kid now. Like, what? That isn't how foreshadowing works. That isn't how screenwriting works. You can't just be like, have a side character completely unrelated to this main character say like, hey, you might make a good dad. And then the main character is just like ends up with a kid at the end. And it's like, what? Like, And
another complaint I saw, which was weird, is that people wanted to see Kat Dennings and Bill Skarsgård in the film, since Jane Foster was being brought back, as well as like the Warrior 3, I think they were called. And like, that's weird to me, because have you already seen how stuffed this film is? We do not need to have more characters. Sure, like it would have been nice to see them, but there's no point.
Speaking of Undercooked, Sif just being there for like 30 seconds, and then she's just ignored. Like he's just there on that planet, and then the next time we see him, he's just not. Like what was that? Like she's just
and I mean,
there, and
you also hear about the people that were going to be in this film. So Lena Headey was going to have a role. Peter Dinklage from Avengers: Infinity War, and the Grandmaster. Like, how was Taika planning on fitting all of these people in?
I don't know.
It does not. I do not understand.
Again, it just felt like Taika indulging in all of his worst tendencies. Like, and it seemed like they gave him complete creative control. And maybe Taika, somebody like who does need a bit of restriction. Like, I don't think that Taika is like a strong enough filmmaker, because like it's also interesting because he just directed Thor Ragnarok. He didn't write it. This film he actually wrote, and I just don't think that when he's given this big of a world to play with, Taika should be writing stuff. Because like he's a great writer, as we saw with Jojo Rabbit, when he's given a very self-contained story and a smaller like characters to work with, like to just tell a concise thing. Whereas with this, he's just given so much that he can use, and then he's just pulling in absolutely everything.
Yeah, and it's not that you can't like build characters and stories around the pretty expansive world. Like if you look at What We Do in the Shadows, that is a world he is creating there, but he's able to focus it on characters and like a proper, actually concise story. Whereas this just goes completely off the rails.
Yeah. Like, why couldn't have Chloe Zhao or Sam Raimi been given this much creative control? Like, why couldn't they have been given this?
Yeah,
like
there is a problem currently between Marvel and sort of auteur directors, and in the last two, Sam Raimi, Chloe Zhao, it's not worked. This one, they've been given. I agree. He's just too much control. You need to.
Taika,
he needs to be
Taika isn't a. I don't think that he's a strong enough like filmmaker to like play with this much. I think that Sam Raimi is. I think that Chloe Zhao honestly is if she was given like if she was just allowed to completely indulge. I think that honestly would have like really worked, and you really let her get like very existential and question, you know, a lot of like the meanings of like just life for these characters and what their purpose is in the world. And like I think that could have worked if you actually let her, but I think anything that's anything remotely ambitious, Marvel gets scared of, and this is like Taika's style is a safe style. Like it is a very Marvel style. So they let him fully indulge. And then in the end, we just get the most safe Marvel movie that we've seen.
Yeah, and not just Chloe Zhao as well. Like if you look at the actual horror elements of Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, they're the best elements of that film. Like when it actually goes, and if Sam Raimi was allowed to do that the whole time, it would have been a miles better film.
Yeah. I mean, and again with Eternals, I think the best elements of Eternals is when it gets more philosophical and when they start talking about like when, you know, it slows down and you see these characters just discussing morality and, you know, their like how they view like spirituality over the course of these years. And I think that's where it's best.
I still don't think Eternals would have worked completely because it would still have had the problem of introducing way too many characters, which I still don't think like Eternals works as a film.
To be fair, I think that's also a Marvel thing, though, throwing in that many characters. I think, like, look at Chloe Zhao's past couple films. It's focused on one person.
Yeah,
she typically likes to tell smaller stories. I honestly think that we would have seen it just focus on like one individual character, probably Gemma Chan, and just like, you know, we see this like world developing around her. And I think that would have worked. I mean, I'm still an Eternals defender because I still enjoy the movie. But I admit that it definitely has its problems. It is nowhere near a perfect movie. But yeah, again, I think it could have been really good if Chloe Zhao was able to like, you know, play with the film how she wanted. And because it's something, it would be something new and different and inventive and provide a like breath of fresh air. And Taika just isn't able to do that. I mean, he's been so Disneyified now. Like he was doing stuff in Lightyear. He's doing a Star Wars movie. He did like stuff with like Free Guy. Like he's just like he's like the Disney guy now, and like that's fine. It's just it's made his style like not necessarily style, but everything is just feels so watered down. It doesn't feel like this like breath of fresh creative energy that we saw. I mean, like what we do.
Yeah, and the sad thing I did. Yeah, I do think it did at one point feel like breath of fresh air. I still do think Thor Ragnarok's a very good MCU film. But as we say, like. It just feels a bit tired at this point, and the MCU as a whole just feels like it's losing its way.
I absolutely agree. I mean, what is Russell Crowe doing? He's so bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a bit of fun watching Russell Crowe, but yeah, it was not a good performance, put it that way.
Yeah, yes. But yeah, like just overall, like the visuals did not look good. I didn't have fun with this movie. It just felt boring because it's just, it's just sad. I don't know. What were our thoughts on the post-credit scene, the first one?
Yeah, I mean, wait, was that the Valhalla one or was that the Brett Goldstein one?
No, the Brett Goldstein one.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's set up.
I like the casting.
Exactly. The problem is they did the exact same thing at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, really, with like, the disgruntled villain goes to unleash superpower, and it's Adam Warlock. It was this time with Hercules. But Adam Warlock's not done anything since. He's not a beard. He's not
Yeah.
even name dropped. I don't think so. Like, we'll
He's
just
gonna
have
be in
much.
Guardians 3. He's gonna be in Guardians 3.
Okay, but yeah, still, like, it's I really don't care what the MCU is setting up at this point. I could
Yeah.
not care less.
Because are we gonna get a third Taika Thor movie, a Thor 5, where we're again gonna focus on Chris Hemsworth's Thor, but now with this daughter? And guess what it's gonna be? He's gonna now have to find his place in the world now with a daughter, and then he's gonna have to work through. And it's like, we've seen this story so many times. Like, I would have much rather seen this transition into a Jane Foster story, because I think that Natalie Portman is a better actress. And I think she has a more compelling story at this point. And I don't know. I think it would have worked so much better.
A fundamental problem with this film is that Chris Hemsworth's Thor is a detrimental part to the movie. And none of the problem when he's the titular character. Like, in Black Panther, sure, Black Panther's, as a character himself, is not the most interesting protagonist. He's not the best. He's one of the weaker parts of the movie. But he's not detrimental to the movie. Here, the titular character he's a problem.
Within Black Panther, I almost see T'Challa as like an antagonist, quite honestly. I think he functions. I think both him and Killmonger, like, neither of them really fit like the protagonist antagonist mold. And they both exist in this morally gray area, which is such a great thing to do for a Marvel movie, because like so often we see like these characters, like everything just has to fit into this good versus evil, and it's so refreshing to see morally gray, especially like in stuff like, I'll throw out, and again, this is just turning into a conversation about the MCU as a whole, but like in Spider-Man Homecoming, I think that Vulture actually has legitimately like admirable like like motivation, and I think that he is honestly correct. Like he's just trying to support his family, and he's being oppressed by the government and kept down, and he's like trying to support himself like individually, as like these corporations are like destroying his life, and he just wants to lead like a family. And I think that he honestly has the correct motivation. Same thing with like Killmonger. But then like in Spider-Man, they just have to make Vulture do like this, like, objectively terrible things that you dislike him. They do the same thing in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think that the villains have the correct motivation, and I think that they have the more admirably like moral thing that they are doing, like comparatively to like Bucky and Falcon. And then the movie just makes them do like this objectively awful thing of like bombing this like hospital or whatever, and then you're like, okay, well now I guess I have to dislike these people. And it has to fit everything into like this good versus evil, and we can't have these like morally gray conversations. And that isn't to say much about Thor, but it's just, again, everything has to, like, you can't have a nuanced conversation about anything. Everything in this movie that could be nuanced or like interesting in any way is just incredibly watered down to like its bare bones, so that way we just see it and then we can move on.
Because like I'm sure they think that because Christian Bale's character sort of redeems himself at the end, that he's morally grey now. He's really not. He's just a villain who does one sort of not terrible thing at the end, and that doesn't make a complex character. Bale's good in the role, but the character itself is actually not that
Bale's
interesting.
great. Bale deserves so much better, because I think that he is honestly, like, he gives one of the best performances in the MCU. And it just isn't used. Like, I honestly believe he gives one of the best performances in the MCU. Like, he's great. Christian Bale's a great actor. Like, Christian Bale's a very good actor. And he's just given nothing to do. And he's given this movie so much. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much more we have to talk about. It's just, it's so narratively messy. Like, the visual effects are so hit or miss. It feels like such, both visually and narratively, it just feels like such a like superficial fake movie.
100%. And it's just an embodiment of everything that's currently wrong with the MCU. And maybe it is a little unfair because to pin all of those kind of things on this one movie. But the problem is this movie is such a great representation of everything that is wrong.
Of everything that's wrong. Right, because like, I mean, as you know, like, I mean, I did not like Doctor Strange. I think that this is worse than Doctor Strange, honestly.
At least Doctor Strange had some interesting elements. Like, this really
the horror. Like, I think that, like, honestly, that just has like some great like makeup work as well. And like this does as well, but like it has great makeup work, and it actually has like, it feels like it has a style, whereas this just feels like Taika like completely conforming with the Marvel style. Also still trying to do his own thing. Like, it just, I don't know. Just did not work for me. I didn't like Doctor Strange. I think that Spider-Man No Way Home is fun, but has a lot of problems when looking back on it on rewatch. Eternals is just like much more of a personal thing because like
Yeah.
I can admit that like is it the most well done movie? No. Chloe Zhao is just a very personal director for me. Like even with Nomadland, like it has its problems. The writer has its problems. Like all of her movies like definitely have their problems. She's far from a perfect filmmaker. They just fall into like the comfort movie category for me. And
Whereas for me, like,
I can
if you know my thoughts on Eternals, like I do still think it's one of the weakest MCU films, like with Thor: The Dark World and those kind of things. Iron Man 2, Iron Man
and here's
3,
the thing,
and this as well. I'd throw this in among the weakest MCU films category. I do think it is a step above Eternals, just because I don't think Eternals worked as a film at all. Because at least there were moments here where I was entertained and I could appreciate Bell's performance and all of those kind of, and it didn't feel long or boring like Eternals did. Like, So, but still, it's not.
And here's the thing with Eternals. And here's the thing with Eternals. I can completely understand all of the criticisms of Eternals and understand why people don't like it. And I think a lot of them make sense. It's just like it's a movie where I just have to admit to myself that it just like very subjectively on a personal level I enjoyed it, but objectively I know it isn't great. And like Shang-Chi and Black Widow are just both completely forgettable. Like
which is because I enjoyed Shang-Chi enough coming out of it. I thought, okay, it's good. It's like 4, but I don't know. There's nothing memorable to it really. So it's probably like a 6, 7 out of 10 at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a 6 out of 10. And like again, people are much higher on Spider-Man than I am, but like it does not work on a rewatch. It's just again a lot of the problems with the MCU of just like very shallow storytelling substituted with just throwing characters on the screen and being like, look, this was fun. And that isn't, I don't know. I'm so fed up and frustrated with the MCU. I hope that Black Panther can come out and it's actually good because I think that Black Panther is the best MCU film. I think that it actually like works really well, but I'm just losing so much confidence in it. Like, I don't know. It's very frustrating.
And I'm hoping we look back at this in 5 years when we get the next big crossover movie that's worldwide hit and everyone loves it. Then we look back and go, oh, weren't we silly for, we were just impatient. But right now, it just directionless. Right now, it just feels like they don't know where they're going. They went big with Endgame. They went possibly the biggest they could have gone, other than multiverse stuff, which they're trying to do now, which is not working.
It's not working at all.
They don't know where to go. They don't know where to go.
Yeah, it feels so lost. But I don't know. This movie was just, I guess if I were to sum it up in one word, I would just annoying. Just like an annoying little pest that you like swat away. So yeah, we can have a brief Oscars conversation, I guess. Visual effects at bare minimum, like usually at least one.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing. Typically we'll see one MCU, but like we'll see a superhero movie get in. I think that we have to expect a superhero movie will get in.
Yeah. I think even though I think the visual effects in Doctor Strange were iffy, I still think they were more, they were better than this, put it that way.
Yeah. This looked like really bad. So I don't know. I think that like I don't know. Maybe Doctor Strange still gets in because like obviously I think the Batman does get in as like a superhero film, but like I find it hard to believe that Marvel will just go nominationless.
Yeah,
like
no, but I agree. I think one MCU film will get in, but I don't think it should be this one. And it's maybe me wishing that it doesn't get in because maybe it does get in, but it doesn't deserve it. It does not deserve it at all.
No, like there's just some scenes that look terrible. Like anything with Zeus's lightning bolt as well just looked awful. Like it looked so bad. Yeah. So like I don't know. And it also depends on if we get another MCU film later this year. Like if Black Panther does come out, maybe I guess. But I don't know. Something will get in. I would say as of now, Doctor Strange is actually more likely. Just because I guess it's more ambitious.
Yeah.
And they do look better overall, I would say, even though this doesn't look good. So yeah. I don't know. Any final thoughts on the? Oh yeah, well obviously that's the only Oscars thing that this is going to come even close to. Like not even close. I guess you can make the argument for makeup, which I mean it's a shallow category, but like no. It'll get like a makeup and hair award for like I don't know if this would file on like I guess like fantasy sci-fi. It'll probably get like a fantasy sci-fi like makeup and hair award or nomination. But like they nominate 15 things between period, contemporary, and fantasy. So like I guess because it's weak this year, but that will be it. Any final thoughts on this movie?
I mean, if I was to give it a rating, I'd probably run it 4, maybe 3, 4. That seems about right. Also, can't believe we didn't mention the goats the entire time. Those screaming goats were
so annoying.
The most annoying thing. We went the whole review without talking about them. I thought,
Yeah. No, some people are like I saw Letterboxd reviews like the best use of goats since like The Witch. It's like
I
no,
saw that
these were
bro.
just annoying. The the witch was great. I love Black Phillip. We stand Black Phillip here at Oscar Buzz.
Well, do we? Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute.
Fine,
We stand the
I
devil.
stand Black.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Keep me out of it. I don't want to be haunted by a devil, please.
I stand Black Phillip here at Oscar Buzz.
Okay.
But no, these goats were incredibly annoying, and again, it just felt like Taika giving into his worst tendencies. My theater was
Yeah.
dead. Nobody laughed. I was in a packed IMAX theater, and nobody cared.
Yeah.
Which I think also kind of brought down the mood of the movie, but it was just crickets. So yeah, no, I would agree. I think it's also a 4. Just a very disappointing entry into the MCU. Like, it isn't the worst MCU film. I think there are elements to enjoy, but it could have been so much better. Like, there are so many things that could have been improved, and this just felt so weak. Like, yeah, just, I mean, at its core, just like a really poorly, incoherently written narrative.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to move on from that. And then compounding the visuals looking bad and your performances being hit or miss. Like, it was just a lot of elements of a bad movie. And I think you can call this a bad movie. So.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I feel confident doing that as well.
And it's frustrating because Marvel, you'd expect better from Marvel, and especially Taika. Taika's better than this.
He is.
So I don't know. Just makes me scared for next Skull wins, but we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully, it's a bit different though, that kind of film. So
yeah,
I'm
still
hoping
to get more Jojo Rabbit.
I still hoping for that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that is it. We didn't like this movie that much. Almost as long as our Batman review. Very long conversation. A lot to say. And negative, which is unfortunate. I wanted to like this, but MCU's just getting more and more frustrating. So
it is.
But we'll see everybody soon. We'll probably be reviewing RRR soon. We're gonna finally catch up with that one. Marcel the Shell, I'm hopefully seeing it this upcoming week. And then we have Where the Crawdads Sing, which I don't know if you'll be seeing, but I'll be seeing it.
Not. Yeah.
So yeah, but plenty to talk about, as well as we're probably gonna get Fall Festival news very soon. So that's exciting. I'm more excited for those movies at this point. But thank you everybody so much for watching. Until next, stay safe.